Okay, so Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Mahreen Ahmed and I am a secretary for the PVS Immigration Club that is helping to host this event today. On behalf of all the organizations who are a part of today's event, I thank you all for coming here tonight, and inshallah this will be a very beneficial event for everyone present. This event, the Voters Information Seminar, is aimed to give a breakdown of the different presidential candidates and where they stand on topics that are important to our ummah and the importance of Muslim votes in America. I would like to preface that this event is organized by the PVS Immigration Reform Club, a fully student-run organization, AMAC, and Muslim Voices for Change. I would also like to thank Miss Emel, who's over there, for helping us plan and organize this event. And without further delay, I would like to call up one of my club members, Ruqayya Baruch, to recite some Quran. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. These couple of ayahs talk about Allah's message to us, how there's strength in unity. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم واعتصموا بحبل الله جميعا ولا تفرقوا واذكروا نعمة الله عليكم إذ كنتم أعداء فألف بين قلوبكم فأصبحتم بنعمته إخوانا وكنتم على شفا حفرة من النار فأنقذكم منها وكذلك يبين الله لكم آياته لعلكم تهتدون ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وأولئك هم المفلحون. And hold firmly together to the rope of Allah, and do not be divided. Remember Allah's favor upon you when you were enemies, and He united your hearts. So you, by His grace, became brothers, and you were at the brink of a fiery pit, and He saved you from it. This is how Allah makes His revelations clear to us, so that you may be rightly guided. Let there be a group among you who call others to goodness, encourage what is good, and forbid what is evil. It is they who will be successful. Thank you. Right now, I will introduce my friend Ruqayya. She's a junior at PVS, so come on.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ruqayya Najdawi. I am the co-president of the Immigration Club at PVS, and I am now going to introduce the panelists for this event. First up, we have Dr. Muhammad Maali, who completed a bachelor and a master's degree from Georgetown University and a PhD from the University of Texas. He is the principal of Pleasant View School, where he helped establish a high school program and ensured the school obtained accreditation. Next up, we have Miss Emel, who graduated with a degree in political science. She teaches activism and social studies at Pleasant View School and is the program manager for the West Tennessee American Muslim Advisory Team. We also have Dr. Nabil Bayakli, who received his bachelor's in science in aquaculture, a master's in marine biology, and completed his PhD in cell and molecular biology. He is currently a professor at Lemoyne Owen College and a biology teacher at Pleasant View School. One of the best teachers I've had. And now my co-president will come up and ask our panelists the questions for the event. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, panelists. So, Dr. Backley, as a longtime organizer in Memphis, how has the journey been for Muslims when it comes to building Muslim institutions and building up the Muslim community? And what campaigns can we work towards? And what's the importance of Muslim vote?
Assalamu alaikum. First and foremost, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, may Allah reward the kids, actually the students at Pleasant View School for doing this. This is their effort, inshallah, and that's just seeing them gives joy to our heart, because that means, inshallah, the future of Islam is flourishing, inshallah, with their effort. So, barakallah fihim, inshallah, may Allah make this event in the reward of good deeds, inshallah. So the question is about the really, in a sense, the Muslim and the Muslim, in a sense, footprint in Memphis and also maybe in the south of the United States. So I remember actually when I came to the United States in 1979, and was the issue of the Iranian embassy. At that time, Muslims, anyone who looked Middle Eastern, even if they were actually from the subcontinent, they didn't really care about them. Everybody was prejudiced against them. Many of our friends actually were killed in the driver's seat with their seatbelt on when the police would come and ask them for a insurance, like when they stopped them on a traffic stop and they asked them for insurance, the insurance was in the glove compartment. So if they tried to reach for the glove compartment, the police would shoot them right there in the seat, and then they would get away with it. The police would say, well, I was scared that he had a gun in his glove compartment, even though they know that he was just reaching for. So that kind of situation that we had, in that time, that's the late 70s, the early 80s. A lot of time actually we forget that every institution that's here, built here in Memphis actually, wasn't given to us in a silver platter. We had to fight for almost every institution that we built here in Memphis, whether from the Muslim Society of Memphis, Masjid al-Nur, the school, Pleasant View School, all of this actually, we had the cemetery. In every institution or every foundation we try to make for Muslims and Islam, we fought for it. So we had to fight for our rights, although these are rights that are guaranteed by the Constitution, but they're not going to give you your rights. You really have to go up and fight for them in order for you to get your own rights that's guaranteed for you in the Constitution. And I'm not going to talk about how much the fight and what we went through all of this, but this is just an idea just to show that, alhamdulillah, now for those who come here and they see, mashallah, 9 masajid in Memphis, big masajid, that wasn't the case. We fought for this footprint in a sense that's present in Memphis as we speak, but the battle is not over. And now I think we are up to the most important battle, and that is actually in the public sphere. The public sphere. We're lacking on Muslim representation in the public sphere. I worked actually, and I'm now sad to say, with Steve Cohen himself. Steve, before he became the congressman, he ran for the state senator. And he had many issues, and one of them was actually I forget what is it. It's for the students to get to college, they will give them scholarships if you have like a 3.0 and above. And we worked actually. I helped him pass this, and he passed it when he was state senator, and then he ran for the Congress. And I don't want to say shoulder to shoulder, but I was with him in his campaign. And I knew his mother, his late mother, and all that. So we really promoted Steve at that time. And now we see how this turned around. And the reason it turned around because it's of our weakness. Because we as Muslims are not really present. We're very happy and we're comfortable within our masajid. Within our comfort zone, mashallah, we talk big, we talk tough, we talk big time, But once we are outside in the public sphere, we fizzle out. Well, I still remember one time downtown I saw one brother from one street. I said, "Salaam alaikum." He ducked. Like I said, no, it's okay. They're right. So it really, a lot of time we are really just within the walls of the masajid. MashaAllah, we talk tough, but outside the masajid there is no representation, and that is now where we need to be in. This is where we need to be. We need to move our comfort zone. We need to go beyond our comfort zone, and we need to start tackling these issues, not for me and for Hala and for others, but actually for the children and the grandchildren. This is really important. That's why we're happy actually to see the immigration club that's already juniors and seniors and maybe freshmen also, inshallah. So that guarantees continuity. So that's really very, very promising. That's very, very promising is from now, actually, they're ready to step out and start talking about these things. Because what's important now is the propagation of Islam in this part of the world. And the only way we can strengthen Islam in this part of the world is by us being part of parcel of the public sphere. In the United States. The public sphere means actually out there in City Hall, in the County Commission, in the Board of Education, and things of that nature. That's what I'm talking about, out there. Not just coming here to the masajid, even not too many of us actually come to the masajid for the 5 daily prayers. But we have to carry the message outside the masjid and be involved. I don't know how much time I have. I'm good? I have 10 minutes? Oh, okay. So the next thing was really about the candidates. And probably you already know the major candidates will be the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. And this is sad to say actually that in the United States, supposedly this is a democratic country, that all what people hear is only about Democrats and Republicans, and they don't hear about the other candidates. And that's really a shame. This is really a slap in the face of democracy, if we talk about real democracy. Of course, the Democratic candidate, always the main thing for both of them is economy. And the way in which the Democrats approach economy is that they want to basically tax the rich and give help and support for the poor, and that's their base, the grassroots, whether for the low paid or low class or the middle class. So that is always their initiative. They also, of course, they are the one who progressive on immigration issues, although that they try to look tough now on immigration because they need to look tough on immigration. Because the other side, the candidate, always hit them on the issue of immigration. And of course, they talk about strengthening border security, and they talk about strengthening the image of the United States abroad. So these are the major issues. They want public education, fund public education, the healthcare, and give more help on healthcare and issues of that nature. So you can see that most of the agenda of the Democrats is always more like within the people, with the social sphere of the public. That's what, in general, where the support for the Democrats come from. For the Republicans, of course, their theme is "Make America Great Again." And I'm not going to say it's actually "Make America Hate Again." It's really a camouflage. And if you see if you look at every whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans, they have a platform. And if you look at the platform, then you see what the Democrats are running for, what's their platform that they're running for. And by the way, actually in the year 2020, believe it or not, the delegates for the 2020 Democratic National Convention, they spoke about Palestine. Let me say this again. In the 2020 delegates for the Democratic platform, there was a big fight within for the platform because many of the delegates wanted to talk about Palestine and to put Palestine within the platform to have a recognition of Palestine and all that. And they actually canceled that meeting at that time, and then they reconvened again, and it changed the whole thing. So just show you how democratic is the democratic process here. So again, now they have a new platform, and there is no mentioning of Palestine again, and or anything of that. On the Republican side, again, they have the very top. Actually, they talk about security and immigration, kicking all the illegals out. I mean, this is part of their platform. It's unbelievable. Follow or arrest anyone who are pro-Hamas and deport them. This is in their platform. This is part of their platform. Talk about the kicking the Latinos out. You know, that's on their platform. Strengthening immigration, deportation, and all that stuff. So that's again on the Republican platform. That's what they, that's what they say that they're running for, and this is how they strengthen America. That's how they make America strong again. Well, one thing that's really nobody talks about is what's called the Project 2025. And the Project 2025 actually started with Trump and the Heritage Foundation. And the Heritage Foundation is like the most, they call it conservative, but actually they are just extremist right-wing folks who, they are haters really. They're just full of hate. And their program, believe it or not, is that to dismantle the government really. That's, like they want to stop the, or ban the Homeland Security, reprogram or reshuffle the FBI, the federal government, try to stop public education. It's unbelievable, actually. If you look at this Project 2012, it's very, very anti-American, really. But they run it, within their, but they don't put it as part of their platform. It's a separate agenda, and it's called the Project 2025. Although they try to distance themselves from it now, saying, no, this is not Trump, forgot about it and all that, but all the people who are around Trump, his advisors, his supporters, wherever, if he got any kind of advice, from them, they are all the ones who run Project 2025. So you want to tell me that all of these folks are around you, and then when you get to the government, you're not going to run Project 2012. Right? That's what they try to say, because they know now how bad and the negative remarks that's coming from this Project 2025 within the American public. So it's not really becoming publicized, but it is there. It is there. So that's for the major candidates. This is for the Democrats and for the Republican. Of course, there's also the Green Party. And as an environmental scientist, I am Jill Stein is very, very progressive in that comment, in that part. She's really all for the environment. Her economy is based on green economy. A green economy means try to make buildings that are more environmentally friendly. Try to build cars that are more environment friendly. Infrastructure that's more environmentally friendly. So that's when you say the Green Party and the Green Party agenda. All her economical plan is coming from that point of view. Besides that, her vice president is a Muslim, and she speaks highly on the genocide in Palestine. She talks about genocide. She doesn't talk about war. She calls it as it is and calls what's going on in Palestine as genocide. And she spoke at many of our rallies, in a sense, very openly talking about we need to stop supporting Israel. We need to stop sending all this money and weapons and all of this. So she's really very much progressive on that side. The second one is Cornel West. And Cornel West, subhanAllah, he's one of the most freedom fighters, you can say. He's, subhanAllah, for years and years and years I've been known for him. He's a civil rights activist, for a die-hard civil rights activist. He's a professor at Cornell and any other universities as well. Again, he has the same economical plan as far as like Gilstein, and also his vice president is also a Muslim, and he also speaks about the genocide in Gaza. He speaks about genocide in Palestine. He speaks that he's been talking about this. In fact, he's the one who told Alan Dershowitz, for anyone who knows Alan Dershowitz, he said, "Get off your crack, man." He was telling him about Israel and all that, and Alan Dershowitz was really praising Israel. And Cornel West on national TV, he looked straight into Alan Dershowitz and he told him, "Get off the crack that you're on. That's not what Israel is all about." So he was really direct and very open of saying and calling what the system that's present, the apartheid system and the genocide that's going on. So he doesn't really shy. He say it straight in their faces, and that's why you don't hear about him. You don't hear about Cornel West, and you don't hear about Gilstein. And Cornel is running as an independent. So Jill is running as environmentalist. Cornel is running an independent. And there is a third guy is running as libertarian. And the libertarian is more actually on the conservative side. He's somewhere, and he's not like they don't like, those are the folks that don't like Trump, because they feel Trump is also taking the country into a bad course. So these are basically the candidates. These are really basically the candidates. Although you're not going to hear about the bottom three, you're going to only hear about the top two. The Democrats and the Republicans. But we shouldn't really think of that's all what's running. That's all what's out there. We should always look into all our options, and I think Dr. Maali will talk about what is it when you vote for a third-party candidate. If you are living here in Tennessee, you know that Trump is going to win. So because of the way the state is. And I should say from here, we're not endorsing anybody. We're not talking as an endorsement. It's just a reality. It's a fact that that's what's going to happen. But that doesn't mean that we should really waste our vote. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't really participate and we shouldn't really go in. Like I said, our final battle, and I will close with this. Our final battle in this country now is the public sphere. And we have to get people elected to the public sphere on every part. We have to start having more lawyers. We should start having more journalists. We should have more media representatives. We should have all of these folks. Alhamdulillah, we got a lot of doctors, engineers, computer scientists, and all that. We need to start focusing on really the other aspect of the society here, and that is the public sphere. And we should really start seriously investing into raising the next candidate for whatever 2026 or whatever year or 2028 is going to be or whatever. We should really start planning on it and work on these things.
Thank you, Dr. Backley, for your input. Dr. Maali, can you now go over how the Muslim American should strategically vote? Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira. As Minha asked, how should we as a community, as the American Muslim community, think strategically about how to vote? When we think about voting, there's different ways to approach it. One way is the more traditional way where we look at the candidate and we try to find which candidate is closest to the way we think. There's another way to look at it, which is maybe more strategic in thinking, and that is you define the specific policies that you believe are important, and then you work to enact those policies. The candidates are just one means. The electoral process is one means to get it done. And this is what we would call an interest group mentality. When you study political science in America, they study political parties as a section, and you study interest groups as a section. The interest group mentality is that as a community, if we were to act as an interest group, we would define what our interests are as an American Muslim community, and we would work towards enacting those policies. instead of just trying to look at the candidates and which candidate best fits our needs. So we could say that there are three major strategies that American Muslims can use when we're looking at the political system. One strategy would be to embed ourselves within the political parties. And this serves a certain purpose. And I think it's important for American Muslims to be involved in both Democratic, Republican Party as well as third parties. We should have people involved in those parties from the inside trying to influence the way those parties think. But that should only be a small minority of people. A second strategy would be the strategy that I talked about just now, the interest group mentality, where we as a community come together, and alhamdulillah, our community did that this year. The leaders of a number of organizations came together and they defined what are those policies, what are those red lines that the American Muslim community believes are important. So they defined those policies, and then we worked to enact those policies. Again, the electoral process is one way. Lobbying is one way. Demonstrating in the streets is one way. There's many, many ways you can work to get those policies enacted. But again, the issue is the policy, not the candidate. And then the third strategy, which is what our community has done for many years and which is not as effective, is that you look at the candidates and you decide which is the least harmful candidate or the most beneficial candidate for our community. The next step then, which becomes strategic, is that you try to vote for that candidate as a block. So again, the difference in the main two is, do you choose which candidate is better and you vote for a block for that candidate, or do you make a policy and you set a red line and you work for that red line? Again, when you set the policy, you're much more effective. And your vote counts for much more because your vote is no longer cheap. That means the candidates know to get your vote, they have to support your policy. When Kamala Harris, in her first rally after she was chosen as the candidate, there were some protesters there, Palestinian protesters. And she got flustered. And she replied to them. She tried to engage them in conversation. And she said, "Why are you protesting against me? I'm much better than Trump for your community." But that was an indication of our weakness as a community. That she thought that just because she's better than Trump, we'll vote for her, even though she didn't really do anything for us. When the American Muslim community leaders came together this year, they basically talked and they had a lot of discussions about what are the main issues for our community. And they said the main issue is the genocide in Palestine. That the issue of the genocide in Palestine is by far the most important issue that's facing our community right now. Other important issues are the fact that we still have political prisoners in the United States who are Muslim. They've been in prison for almost 2 decades now. And we don't talk about it that much. People like Shukri Abu Bakr, people like Ghassan al-Ashi, Mufid Abdul Qadir. These are people who are in prison. They've been in prison on purely political grounds for almost 2 decades now because they were politically taking a position supporting Palestine. And the court system was trumped up and the whole system was geared in a way that was not fair for them. That is another important issue for us, that we're allowing Muslims to be put in prison for political reasons. A third major issue, which is, according to the American Muslim organizations, was not as salient this year as it might be in the future, is religious freedom in America. Do we as a Muslim community have the right to practice our religion? And we see with the way the country's going, with a lot of the very liberal policies, sometimes that liberalism takes on a tinge of anti-religion, where they might start forcing masajid, for example, to allow transgender people into the men's bathroom, a woman into men's bathroom. Things like that. There's legal things that are happening in America. Those things might pass, where there are attempts to say as religious freedom we have the right to not abide by those things, where it's not clear where that's going in America today. So those are issues that we could say are red lines. That we're not going to vote for you because you're a little bit better than Trump, but we're going to vote for you if you do something to stop the genocide in Palestine. And using this kind of thinking is what has enabled a lot of interest groups to become extremely powerful in America. So if we look at, for example, the NRA, the National Rifle Association, the majority of Americans, sometimes 60, 65, 75, or 70% of Americans support stricter gun control laws, but they almost never pass because a committed minority believes very strongly in unfettered gun rights. Even though all polls in America show that they're less than 30, sometimes 40%, the NRA is able to get their policies passed because they believe in only that one issue. And they're going to vote only on that one issue. Whereas most people have a plethora of issues they're voting for. So they might think, I support gun control, but it's not the most important thing for me, so I'll vote for a candidate who doesn't support gun control if he supports 5, 6 other things that I support. If we look at the anti-abortion movement, same thing. In terms of their numbers, they're a minority. The majority of Americans support abortion. Yet they were able to get candidates elected who are anti-abortion, again, because they take it as the most important issue for them. If we look at the Zionist lobby itself, this year, recent polls show that 61% of Americans support an arms embargo in Israel, in the latest poll in June. 76% of people in the Democratic Party support an arms embargo in Israel. Yet, the Democratic Party leaders, even though 76% of their party members support an arms embargo, they don't support the arms embargo because they know that there's a committed minority of Zionists who will vote on this issue. And if they don't support, if a candidate comes out supporting an arms embargo, they're going to lose that small minority of Zionist votes. The problem is that as Muslims, are we willing to do the same thing? Are we willing to vote solely on that issue, just like the Zionists will vote, a group, we're not saying all Jews, of course, but there's a group of Zionists who will vote solely on that issue. And they're powerful enough within the Democratic Party to make sure that's the issue that basically is the issue of the party. If you look at farmers, for example, farmers in America represent a very small minority, yet they vote on their issue. And the United States now has vast subsidies that they give to farmers. So the United States government gives billions of dollars to farmers every year not to grow certain crops, because that's what the farmers ask for. And again, they're a small minority of voters, but they will vote on that issue. For a number of years, Iowa, until the last election, Iowa was always the first state in all the primary elections. This was the first time it wasn't for the Democrats. But what did that mean? Because of Iowa being the first state, candidates for the parties would want to win the state of Iowa. If you won Iowa, it would give you a boost and you would then be more likely to win the primary election for your party. Because of that, they tried to get the farmers' vote, because Iowa was basically a very rural, very farmer-friendly state. So those kind of things made them vote for what the farmers wanted. Same thing with many, many industries. It's an issue in America that the industries will put lobbyists and they'll lobby Congress for something that maybe 90% of Americans think is not right for the country, but that industry will get some kind of subsidy from the government because a committed minority believes in it and sticks to it. So when we talk about our strategy as a Muslim community, can we become like that? Can we become so committed to an issue that we make the candidates accept our issue? All of us know about the swing states right now and how important those swing states are: Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, Wisconsin, Nevada. Because most of the country, as Dr. Bayakli mentioned, Tennessee is going to vote for Trump. Everybody knows that. It's the swing states that people don't know that are going to determine the election. So you'll find that right now, whatever issues are important for those swing states become the most important issues in the country. Kamala Harris opposed fracking. To get the oil and gas through the fracking procedure. It's environmentally, it's not good for the environment. Kamala Harris used to be strongly against it, but right now she needs to win Pennsylvania. It's almost impossible for the Democrats to win the presidential election this year if they don't win Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, fracking's a huge industry. So she changed her position because she wants to win Pennsylvania. Another issue that's in our favor is that there are large Muslim minorities in all of the swing states. And that gives us double power because we have our Muslim vote concentrated in swing states. Then on top of that, the Muslims can be swing voters. That means we're not committed to either party. If we're sticking to a policy, it means we might switch from one party to another party. And that's what gives us more power. If we were stuck with the Democratic Party, and the Democratic Party knew that no matter what, like Kamala Harris said, that I'm better than the other guys, you're going to vote for me anyway. If they have that perception, then we become extremely weak as a community, and our vote becomes worthless. That we're going to vote for Democrat anyway, so the Democrats don't have to give us anything. If we look at the example of Florida, for a number of years, Florida was a swing state. And for a number of years, the Cuban Americans in Florida were a swing community. They might vote Republican, they might vote Democrat. The Cubans in Florida were very, very anti-Castro. So to get the Cuban American vote, we had, the United States government for decades would never pass an embargo or would maintain the total embargo on Cuba because they wanted the Cuban American vote. When the Cuban Americans in Florida became more linked to the Republican Party, instead of being swing voters, that's when Barack Hussein Obama changed to policy and started trying to lighten the embargo. So when we look at the current election, as I mentioned, there's an American Muslim task force for the 2024 presidential election. That task force met. They said that our red line this year is genocide. That no matter what, we have to put that as our community's red line, that we will not support any candidate, whether for president or for anywhere else on the list going down the ticket, who supports a genocide. The American Muslim Task Force is made up of the American Muslim for Palestine Action, which is most 501c3 organizations that are involved in politics will have what they call a 501c4 organization, which can endorse. So it's a for-profit organization. It's not a non-profit organization. So the American Muslim for Palestine, CARE, the Muslim American Society, and the United States Muslim Council of Organizations, which includes more than 24 organizations, some of the major organizations in America. They all came together and said that, first, Muslims should turn out to vote. All Muslims should vote, even if the candidates are not good. Even if you go there and you don't put anybody's name, because when you vote, your name is registered as a voter, and having more Muslims vote means we're more powerful. And then they said we should vote for a candidate who supports an arms embargo in Israel. That was the red line. Based on that, they said we cannot endorse Kamala Harris. And they're encouraging the Muslim community not to vote for Kamala Harris because of her refusal to even consider an arms embargo. And they list other reasons, but the main one, she refused to consider an arms embargo. They also said, and they condemned in their statement Donald Trump, and they said that they strongly recommended that no Muslim supports his candidacy for a number of reasons. For his racist stances on a number of issues, for the fact that he said if he's elected, he's going to start arresting anybody who is protesting for Palestine, who consider them terrorists and put them in jail. So for a Muslim to vote for Trump as a protest against Harris is not really the right way of doing it. Then again, you're not voting on principle. You're voting just as a revenge tactic. If we vote on principle, and the principle is we don't support genocide, then the only option they said was available to the Muslim community, or the one they recommend, is that we vote for a third party. Either Jill Stein, Cornel West, or what's his name, Chase, I forgot his name. And again, Cornel West and Jill Stein, as Dr. Bayakli mentioned, have both chosen a Muslim vice president, which means that they see the strength of our community. It's not a coincidence that both of them chose a Muslim to be their vice president candidate, because they again know that we are potentially swing voters. So both of them put a Muslim as their vice president. It would be in our interest to vote for a third party. You could make the argument that why should we throw away our vote for a party that we know will not win? And the answer is that third parties historically have been extremely powerful in helping get policies passed. They don't get candidates passed, but remember, we shouldn't be looking for a candidate, we should be looking for a policy. So if you look at 1912, for example, Teddy Roosevelt ran as a third-party candidate for what they called the Bull Moose or Progressive Party. He lost the election. After the election, most of the things he was calling for, in terms of more progressive labor laws, minimum wage laws, all these kind of things, they were passed by the candidates who won, because they saw that Teddy Roosevelt had got, I forgot, like 27% of the vote. He got a massive amount of the vote, so the parties knew that the issues he was talking about were important. They adopted his issues. So the ones who voted for him, he didn't win, but they won, because the policies they wanted got adopted. In 1992, Ross Perot ran on the Reform Party. He got 19% of the vote. Again, he lost the election, didn't get any electoral college votes. He was calling for making the country more fiscally responsible. All of the things he called for were enacted by those who won the election, because they knew that if he was able to get almost 20% of the vote, those policies were important enough to enough Americans that they would make a difference. In 2000, Ralph Nader, he got very small percentage of about 3% of the vote. Yet the same thing, Ralph Nader in 2000 was calling for a lot of consumer protection type policies. Almost everything he called for was adopted by those who won the election. So voting for a third party is actually one of the most powerful votes you can give, because the candidates know that you're willing to vote for somebody you know is going to lose because you have principle. And as American Muslim community, we should stand on principle that we cannot and will never support any candidate who supports the genocide in Palestine, or who even will ever send weapons or arms to Israel. Again, the majority of Americans now, for the first time in history, are on our side on that issue. 61% of Americans are against selling arms to Israel. And as a community, if we adopt that position, we're much more likely to get it passed if we're willing to vote for a third party and show the whole country that we're willing to give our votes to somebody that we know is going to lose, because we have a principle that we stand on. Jazakumullahu khairan.
So, Jazakallah khair, Dr. Mahdi. I just want to add, in addition to the task force that all these Muslim nonprofits had came up with the letter, there was actually a letter by 36 imams and scholars across the U.S., including Dr. Omar Suleiman, Dr. Yasir Qadhi, Imam Tom Fasheen, and many others. And they all said the same thing, which is, one, do not skip voting. So as you see our students passing out the flyers, there are different QR codes that you can make sure that you're registered to vote, because the deadline is this Monday. The deadline for registration to vote is this Monday. So one, let's not skip voting. It's very important for us to have any power to vote, to be represented, to be present, because to not be present is to be invisible, and that's what we have been for decades. So this is not our time. This is not the time to be invisible. And then number two, like the other task force had said, is to vote third party. We're not endorsing future genociders, and we're not endorsing the current genociders. That's the message that the imams and our scholars have said. And then number three, which is really important and is often missed, is voting down the ballot. What does that mean? It means let's look at the local candidates and let's see actually what positions do they support. So what I want to show is just really quickly a quote from the letter that was really powerful. It says, "And so we are putting our faith and humanity first, standing on principle," like Dr. Mali said, "rejecting anyone who has endorsed, perpetrated, or vowed to further evil. We are not choosing between a lesser and greater evil. We are staring down two monstrous evils, one that is currently committing genocide and one which is committed to also continue it." So this is voting down the ballot. I know it's a bit small, but if you want to take a screenshot, and I promise we will have it printed and we will share it. These are a couple of candidates. We have US senators, and it shows in the yellow if they don't support a ceasefire, and in the purple if they support a ceasefire. And how do we know this? We looked through their public statements, but we also invited some of these candidates to a candidate forum, and we asked them, do you support a ceasefire? So the ones in purple support a ceasefire, and they will be on the ballot on November 4th for us to vote for or against. It's up to you, but this is just what they stand on the Gaza genocide. So what are the key dates? Again, Monday, October 7th is the voter registration deadline. So what we'll do actually right now as we're doing the Q&A session, I want you guys to hold your phone, scan the QR code on the flyers in front of you to check and confirm if you're registered to vote. If not, it will take you 5 minutes to register. Any of the volunteers can help you. I can also personally help you. October 16th, early voting begins, so we don't have to wait for November 4th, and actually majority of people vote during the early period between October 16th and October 31st. Just so that you're not waiting for the last minute and then something comes up and then you can't vote. And November 5th is the election day. So voting step by step, if you download the app GoVoteTN, the app is GoVoteTN if you want to write it down. It will show you and put in your information. It will show you your polling location that you would need to go to if you vote during election day. If not, there is also that website, the tnmap.tn.gov, voter lookup. If you just look up also voter lookup Tennessee, it will show you, and you put in your information, it will show your registration and it will show your polling site. And this is a sample ballot. So when you see the ballot, it will actually not show all third-party candidates. I just checked it earlier, a couple hours ago, and Cornel West is not on the ballot because he did not meet some Tennessee requirements. But Jill Stein and many other third-party candidates are on the ballot, and you also have Trump and Kamala Harris. So what I want to invite you all is an event that Micah, we have a representative from Micah, hey Ron, that Micah, AMAC, and Votes for All are organizing together, and it's called Immigrants Vote Together. And the idea is Shelby County is the county with the lowest voter turnout in the whole state. And it's not a surprise because Shelby County has the highest, people of color, black population. So what we want is to really this event is focused on immigrants, both from the Latino community and Muslims. And so this will be at the Geisman Park. It will have free food, soccer tournament, and many other fun things for the kids. And we will also, it's a 2-minute walk to the center where you can early vote. So if you don't want to look up your polling location, if you don't want to stress out on November 5th, just come to October 19th, which is a Saturday, 4 to 7 p.m. Have fun with your kids, with the whole family, and vote next door. And that's it. If you have, this is what we have prepared for you, but what we want you to do is in your own groups for 10 minutes or so, just reflecting on everything that has been said by the panelists, and then we'll pass out mics for a quick Q&A, inshallah, before Isha. Jazakumullah khair. So if anyone has a question, you can raise your hand.
I have the mic. I'll come over to you guys. Go there first. They raised their hand first. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Dr. Madi, can you elaborate on the point that the candidate who gets 5% of the votes is able to project their platform and get things done? Explain the mechanism, how this gets done.
So in the presidential election, when a third-party candidate gets a large number of votes, the other two candidates of the parties, the Republican Party and Democratic Party, they kind of get scared that if this third party got, say, 10% of the vote, they know that 10% of the population believes so strongly in an issue that they're going to vote for somebody they know is going to lose. So the issue that they're espousing becomes more important. They try to win over those votes. It's just like if you look at the American election between primary and general election. In the primary elections, you'll have like the Republicans more right-wing, they move to the middle during the general election. Democrats more left-wing, they move to the middle during the general election because they're trying to get more votes. So when a third-party candidate gets a large number of votes, And if they know that, for example, if they knew that the reason this year was for those votes because of the Palestine issue, they would know that the Palestine issue is important to enough Americans that they need to change their position. That just because the Zionists are pushing for a certain thing, if say 3%, 4% of Americans voted for a third party purely on the issue of Palestine, then both parties would give a lot more weight to that issue in the future. That's what happened with Ross Perot. That's what happened with Ralph Nader. That they ran on very small issues. They didn't have a huge platform. They were running. Ross Perot was running on fiscal responsibility. That's basically all he ran on. Afterwards, they passed numerous laws making the United States more fiscally responsible, putting limits on how much the government could spend and all kinds of things. Ralph Nader ran purely on consumer protection. Then we had the Consumer Protection Bureau. All kinds of things came afterwards because the parties didn't want him to keep getting those votes. They didn't want a third party to keep having an issue that took away votes from them. So the Democrats know that they could potentially have the Muslim vote, in states like Michigan, for example. The fact that Muslims don't vote for Democrats is likely to mean that the Republicans might win the state. If enough Muslims didn't vote for the Democrats and Republicans won the state, Democrats in Michigan will think 100 times in the future about trying to alienate the American Muslim vote that's so large in a state like Michigan or Pennsylvania. So basically, you make your vote worth something by not voting for a candidate just because they're better than the other candidate.
Okay, Jazakallah, Dr. Mahdi. We'll move on to our next question.
On the same note, is it better to vote for one particular third party instead of dividing the votes among 3 different third parties to make a point, as a Muslim community all over America?
Yeah, that's a great point. And when the task force, they debated that point. They ultimately came to the conclusion that it didn't matter, put whichever one of the 3 that you would like, because they recognized, especially from Jill Stein and Cornel West, that they were trying very hard to get the Muslim vote. I think they didn't want to alienate either one of them. Again, both of them chose a Muslim vice president. Both of them are largely basing their campaigns on trying to get the American Muslim, the American Arab vote, trying to make the Palestinian issue is the main issue that they're campaigning on. So it was very hard to choose between the 2. The advantage, the potential advantage to putting all the votes, for example, for one of them, if one of the candidates gets 5% of the vote this year, then in 4 years, the federal government will give them funding for their campaign. So there's a law in the United States that the presidential election campaigns will be federally financed if you get more than 5% of the vote. Basically, since 2012, Democrats and Republicans have both declined to take the money because there's a lot of conditions that are attached to it. If you take that money, you have limits on how much you can spend. So it's about $100 million now. When you do your taxes, you'll notice there's a check mark that says, will you want to give $3 of your taxes to federal financing? It's a good thing to do. It doesn't hurt you in any way. It's coming out of your taxes. So instead of going to something else, it'll go towards this pot. And the pot is huge now because for the past 3-4 election cycles, nobody's used it. So this year they offered, I think it was $130 or $140 million, but the candidates didn't want it because they're spending about $400 or $500 million. So if they take that money, they're limited. I think they can only double what they get. So if they get 140, they can only spend 280. But they want to spend $400 or $500 million, so they don't take the money. But a third-party candidate would be able to take maybe $100 million, which will really help them 4 years from now. So that's one thing that was, some people were saying vote for Jill Stein for that reason, because she might get 5% of the vote. But besides that, Cornel West, again, has been such a strong supporter of the American Muslim community for a long time. He's been talking about, trying to improve Black-Palestinian relations for more than 2 decades. And I think the task force didn't want to endorse somebody against him, basically.
Okay, Jazakallah. I think, so this is the last question. We're running out of time.
Assalamu alaikum. So, so you said that we
we should go off of principle. We should vote on principle and not revenge. Currently, there's a lot of Muslim organizers in swing states, specifically Michigan, who are trying to build relationships and power with the Trump administration for that specific reason, to have that revenge, because they see it as like that revenge shows more power. What do you think of that? And is that the best strategy to implement? Because they're saying that's the better strategy to implement in swing states. But for states that are already determined, like Tennessee, these activists are saying that we should, be voting third party. But for them, just as a punishment to the Democratic Party, they should vote for Trump. What do you think of that?
Again, I wouldn't agree with it, because you're voting for somebody who was openly supporting genocide, somebody who has openly used the word Palestinian as a slur. I mean, in the debate with Kamala Harris, he basically said Palestinian as if it's a curse word. Somebody who has openly said that if he's elected, he's going to reenact the Muslim travel ban. He said he's going to outlaw pro-Palestinian demonstrations in the United States and imprison those who are demonstrating. So somebody saying these things, again, for me, it looks like our vote is cheap. That if we're willing to support somebody like that, then our vote it doesn't have much weight. In Michigan, there's another dynamic that was going on before October 7th. Which was leading many of the American Muslim community in Michigan to start going close to the Republican Party, not because of the Palestinian issue, but because of the transgender issue and trying to really push that agenda into schools. So it was the Muslim community in Michigan which took the strongest stance against that, and they allied themselves with the Republican Party. So I think part of it is that pre-October 7th, there was a movement in Michigan for the American Muslims to move more toward the Republican Party for what would have been maybe the red line for them before October 7th. That for religious freedom in America, that we can't accept laws that will really enforce upon the masajid and Islamic schools, even in Michigan, to endorse policies that conflict with our religious values. But again, I don't believe that if we use the vote as a revenge vote and vote for somebody who is very, very anti-Palestinian, very, very pro-Zionist, then again, in my opinion, it means our vote is very cheap. You can get our vote just by not being somebody that we like or being against somebody that we don't like. I mean, we have to make our vote worth something. If we say our vote will not be given to anybody who supports selling arms to Israel, Trump sells arms to Israel. And that's the statement they made. That's why they endorsed all three candidates. All three, Chase Oliver, Cornel West, and Jill Stein, all support a total, full arms embargo on Israel. So they said, if that's our red line, then you can vote for any of those three and have a clear conscience.
I'd like to thank the panelists for coming out and talking to us about this very important topic. And I'd like to thank everyone for coming to show support and learn about this. And also we have people from immigration if you have any questions. Also tomorrow there will be a march for Palestine from City Hall to the Civil Rights Museum at 2. So please try to come. And thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
If you're not registered to vote, let us know. We can register you. Deadline is Monday.
سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر سبحانك ربنا رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خير. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless the young immigration club at Pleasant View School. جزاكم الله خير. Great event.